Okay. Good. Lindy.
Hereby call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. I am the acting chair, Lindy McNulty, and everybody please and thank you.
Daniel Huff.
Jay Boyd.
Eric McKinnon.
And Mark Depot, the Director of Community Planning and Development.
The first item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting summary for April 16, 2026. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes?
I had one comment correction on the bottom of page 1. It says Chair Fair closed public hearing at 6:08. That was actually you. So Mr. Debo, if you could just make that correction, and then I will make a motion to approve the minutes with that amendment.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passed. Seeing no objections, the minutes are approved. New business. Next on the agenda is a public hearing for ordinance 2026-01 site plan requirements and procedures text amendment. For the record, the starting of the public hearing is 6:02 p.m. The public hearing is for an ordinance of the mayor and common council of Westminster amending chapter 164 zoning and subdivision of land of the city code of Westminster, article 16, off-street parking and loading. Number 164-112 compliance required, and number 164-116 off-street loading. Clarify the applicability of off-street parking and loading requirements to site plan and simplified site plan applications. And article 21 administration and enforcement. Number 164-157 zoning certificate to conform with revised site plan and simplified site plan requirements. And article 25 site plans, number 164-206. Applicability, number 164-207, approval required, number 164-208, contents of site plan, number 164-209, simplified site plan, number 164-211, action on site plan, to reorganize, clarify, and distinguish between site plan and simplified site plan review, including certain exemptions and fee schedule to update and align fees in accordance with the aforementioned text amendments. The public hearing has been properly published in the Carroll County Times, meeting all state of Maryland requirements. Staff, please proceed with your report.
Thank you and good evening. So again, this is a public hearing for ordinance 2026, the site plan requirements procedures text amendment. For properties located in downtown Westminster, which are developed and proposing a new use or a change of use pursuant to the City of Westminster zoning ordinance or the zoning ordinance, requires a site plan and zoning certificate. For many of the downtown Westminster properties, there is no approved site plan on record. Therefore, a property that is developed and proposed in a new use or change of use requires the property owner to submit a site plan demonstrating compliance with the zoning ordinance to review and approval, which can be timely and costly. In an effort to reduce the time and cost, community plan development allowed for the submission of a simplified site plan pursuant to zoning ordinance section 164-209, which was intended to be significantly less onerous and far less expensive than a standard site plan. However, as property owners were proceeding with establishing a new use or a change of use, the private costs to draft the simplified site plan was more expensive than staff anticipated. After feedback from several business owners and property owners regarding simplified site plans for developing downtown properties, the city began reviewing Article 25, Site Plan, Section 164-209, for a possible text amendment, specifically the requirements of a simplified site plan. During this review, it was determined that the entire article needed to be further amended. At the January 2026 Mayor and Common Council work session, city staff presented a draft ordinance amending Article 25 At the February 17th, 2026 Mayor and Common Council work session, city staff continued to present the draft ordinance, including revisions based on Mayor and Common Council input and further review of Article 25. The draft ordinance was further refined based on the Mayor and Common Council work sessions and additional staff research. Oh. Wow. Okay. Generally, ordinance 2026-01 site plan requirements and procedures text amendment proposes to amend Article 25, reorganizing the article to provide for better clarification and distinction between site plans and simplified site plans. Amend Article 25 to establish intake procedures for site plans and simplified site plans, to define required contents of a simplified site plan, and to establish a site plan exemption for properties in the downtown parking area. Proposes to amend Article 16, off-street parking and loading, and Article 21, administration and enforcement, Section 164-157, zoning certificate to implement amendments to Article 25, and amend the fee schedule to update and align fees in accordance with the aforementioned text amendments. On April 13th, 2026, the Mayor and Common Council introduced ordinance number 2026-01, referred the ordinance to the Planning and Zoning Commission for its review and recommendation to the Mayor and Common Council. The Planning and Zoning Commission notice of public hearing for ordinance 2026-01 was advertised on May 1st, 2026 and May 8th, 2026 in the Carroll County Times. At this time, staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission forward a recommendation to approve ordinance 2026-01 to the Mayor and Common Council as introduced by the Mayor and Common Council on April 13th, 2026. That completes my report.
Is there anybody wishing to speak? If so, please provide for the record your name and address.
Don't understand, basically, you're requiring someone does a change of use, not doing anything else to the building, they still need to file for a site plan.
As it states today, it's in the staff report, you'll see that the references a zoning certificate is needed for any change of use or new use, and a zoning certificate can't be issued unless there's some document that demonstrates compliance with the ordinance through a site plan, and that document is a site plan. So it was this unusual catch-22, and as I mentioned, downtown, you typically don't have site plans as you would on 140 or throughout the city.
Right.
These are order developed properties.
My biggest concern is you have, like you say, all older buildings downtown on a piece of property. They usually take up the whole property or have no parking on the property. I just don't see the purpose of them having a site plan. That's what's it going to show? It's not going to show much of anything.
And that was the feedback we were getting. They couldn't meet certain standards. There were a lot of modifications that had to be granted. So what this ordinance is doing is providing an exemption for properties in the downtown parking area, which is typically basically downtown.
Okay.
And through certain procedures, we updated procedures in the ordinance as well for site plans, amendments to site plans, and simplified site plans. And then again, adding that exemption specifically for the downtown properties.
Okay.
And that, so if it's a change of use, if it's existing today as a restaurant and the restaurant wants to come into that space, a new one, change of use, even that doesn't need any site plan, they can request an exemption. Retail to retail, commercial to commercial,
Okay.
residential, and we even added additional allowance for the zoning administrator for those circumstances where commercial to retail is still very similar in nature.
Yeah, I'm just concerned, I'm sure that
Yeah, so we were.
it doesn't put a burden on business owners.
Well, the whole point of the ordinance, Jay, is really to try to lessen that burden by making some of these changes.
Okay.
Because at times staff, was in the position of, because the way the code was written, this gives staff more flexibility to better able to use judgment when it comes to some of these old historic properties. Though obviously, if you have a whole building downtown and you're really changing the use in a significant manner, then, you know, even though they don't have parking, there's still site plan related issues that could come up related to that. But this gives staff a lot more latitude in that regard. And obviously, as we, you know, work through that, we will see how, you know, how things go and get feedback. So.
Anyone else? With no other public speakers or additional testimony, the public hearing is hereby closed at 6:10 p.m.
I guess we probably should have closed that before we had
Yeah.
the discussion, but is there any other thoughts here?
I think, again, top of my head,
Why don't we just need a
Can I have a motion on ordinance 2026-01 and a second?
move the planning and zoning commission forward a recommendation to approve ordinance 2026-01. The mayor and common council as introduced by the mayor and the common council on April 13th, 2026.
And I will second that motion.
Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing no objection, the motion is passed. Next on the agenda is an introduction of local map amended LMA 26-01. Staff, please proceed with your report.
Village Square LLC, which is the applicant, submitted an application for zonal classification of a concept development plan titled Village Square, which is referred to as a development plan, to amend the zoning map for property located in the city of Westminster by superimposing the compatible neighborhood overlay zone, or the CN zone, over the RS 7500 residential zone. Construct a mixed-use building containing 120 two-bedroom multifamily dwelling units and approximately 9,100 square feet of ground floor commercial space. The property is located in the southwestern quadrant of the intersection of Sullivan Road and Wilmer Avenue and is bordered by Sullivan Road to the north, Wilmer Avenue to the east, and Schaefer Avenue to the west. The property currently contains several existing multifamily residential structures that predate the current zoning framework applicable to the site. And you can see the buildings in this area as well and the existing conditions. So these are one-story multifamily buildings, I believe, again, approximately 12 that have anywhere between 3 to 4 apartments within each building. The property is located within the W1 water service area and the S1 sewer service area. As the request to superimpose a compatible neighborhood overlay zone over the R7500 zone, the applicant is not required to establish the change or mistake standard applicable to piecemeal rezoning requests because the applicant seeks an application for the CN overlay zone. Staff has conducted a preliminary review of the conceptual development plan, which you can see up on your screen. And is also providing the staff report. In relation to the purposes and approval criteria of CN overlay zone. Staff notes that the proposal presents several characteristics supportive to the CN zone objectives, including infill redevelopment of an existing multifamily property, provision of mixed-use development proximate to existing commercial services, and utilization of existing public infrastructure within the city's W1 and S1 service areas. As stated, the applicant is proposing 122 bedroom multifamily dwellings in a single structure. Pursuant to zoning ordinance section 164-45-17E, multifamily dwellings enter permitted use in the CN zone. The applicant is also proposing approximately 9,100 square feet of ground floor commercial space intended to serve residents of the development and surrounding neighborhood. Pursuant to zoning ordinance section 164-45-17A, accessory uses in buildings customarily incidental to any permitted use in this section is a permitted use in the CN zone. With this, the zoning administrator has preliminarily determined that limited neighborhood serving commercial uses may be considered accessory to proposed residential development. And this is subject to further review. Potential commercial uses may include neighborhood-oriented service and retail uses compatible with adjacent residential development, subject to applicable zoning approvals and operational limitations. And if you want me to go over the site plan, I can quickly go over that with you. You can see that the building is facing the intersection of Sullivan and Weimert. This is actually as you exit 140 on the Sullivan Road. This will be the first build. This will be the building you'll see, a 4-story structure. The entire structure, 4 stories, is residential. The orange area on the screen, that is the first floor commercial.
Mr. Depot, can I ask you a question in reference to that while you have that up? Do you, was there a specific reason that the commercial was designated to be in that particular part of the building? Do you know?
I do not know. I think the applicant would have to explain that. I would think if it was me that this is the portion of the building that is fronted on Sullivan Avenue, the more primary road coming through, and you want to face the commercial on the Sullivan. But again, the applicant can further explain that.
Come on, I didn't mean to.
So, and then parking, as you can see to the rear, they did provide sidewalks and landscaping, and I'll get to some of those concerns as we move forward. Do you have any other questions about the design of the plan itself?
Just for clarification, 4-story or a 5-story building?
4-story building.
There's not really a lot of open space on that.
Yeah.
Right now.
It's gone.
Yeah. What's the floor?
5. I'm sorry, 5.
The lower level. First day.
4 stories of residential.
And around house, part of it, yes.
So it's a 5-story building.
Yeah.
First floor.
5-story building with underground parking. No.
No.
Or it's the first area.
It's 5
faces. One grade, elevated
Yeah.
part.
We can hold off the discussions with public. Sorry about that.
Not wrong.
But thank you for answering the 5-story. 5-story building. The staff report provides information related to the development design preferences as well as outstanding issues related to development plan, which include. I'm sorry, let's go through the architecture. I apologize. I need to do more. So yes, it is a 5-story building. This is the view from Sullivan and Schaefer, the view from Sullivan and Weimert Avenue. So you can see the intersection here of the two. So this would be that the point essentially of the building as you're coming off of 140 on the Sullivan. This is the view you're going to see. And then that piece of work. Wow.
You just have to be off the camera.
Thanks. And this is the main entry. So this is internal to the site where the parking lot is that you're looking. This is where you gain access into the building. So if you notice, if you look at the architecture, it might look very familiar to you. When we went to the 222 East Green Street, a lot of the elements you see here are represented or have been approved on the 222 East Green Street. So they carried some of those discussions and comments with the type of material, the change in elevation, and the height of the building itself, the change in the height, as well as balconies and other elements. Again, so that's why it might look very familiar, and it is the same architect that did do 22 East Green, so that was very helpful as we move forward.
Mr. Debo, kind of strikes me as a slightly more modern version of what we approved on Green Street, because I remember we were really concerned about balconies and such, and how that was done on that elevation, where in here, this location is a different feel from what we were doing on Green Street. So it seems like a relative, but it's not a exact copy.
It's not, it took elements of it and its proximity. The 222 East Green Street is downtown, so it had more flair of the downtown, elements of downtown. That was pushed more. This is much further away, so this is more in keeping of something you would see, a little bit out of downtown or but still within the city area. Again, the main view. Again, mix of material as well, that was brought up. And
This is much better.
you can see then, and the height is helped because the change in the top floor has change in material to kind of provides that, it kind of lessens the height of the view. Sorry, so let me get through some of the concerns that we had. One of them is, I'll just go through them. Concerns with the existing residents currently at the property. Staff is asking the applicant maybe provide some input as to how they're going to be displaced and moved, and if they're working with the people that are currently living in the existing apartments. And this is to the development plan. There's a lack of usable open space in the development plan. So again, that's something I think we can work on as we move forward. And I have talked to the applicant a little bit about that. Just for the purpose of open space, the closest public park is Delaware Family Park, which is approximately 1,500 feet from the property, but there is no defined or safe pedestrian route to access the park from the property. So even though that's not so much of a property issue, I think as a city, we want to look at how we could get people from this development safer to Delaware. There's a lack of sidewalk along the entirety of Schaefer Avenue. And the overall, and staff has concerns with the overall design of the sidewalks. You can see how Schaefer just ends. We're asking that it extends all the way through. Plus, staff is questioning whether there should be a separation of the sidewalk from the street to provide more pedestrian safety and additional landscaping. So I think we want to concentrate, or staff is looking to concentrate on the design of the sidewalk.
In other words, not being right against the street as
Exactly, not being roadway adjacent. We're also, and speaking of the roadway itself, the applicant, and again, this is a concept plan, so we'll move forward. So this is not a slight on the applicant or the plan at all. Looking at the streets themselves for possible parking on the street, how we can provide those, and maybe some traffic calming measures similar to the 222 East Green, where the park is set back, and at the end you have little bump outs to provide some safety and traffic calming. So looking at potential improvements for the roadway itself. Staff believes there's a need for additional evaluation of the building massing and architectural compatibility, which we talked about. Staff is concerned with the lack of landscaping and screening. Again, it's a concept plan, and then more screening will be provided, but I think that's something that we should be looking at this stage as we move forward. Staff is looking eventually for submission of a traffic impact analysis with the 120 units, as well as the commercial, the impacts it may have. So that would be a scoping meeting. We'd have to coordinate with the applicants and move forward with the traffic impact analysis. Certain things, obviously, compliance with the development design preferences. And as we talk through the development plan and the design and the architecture, we just want to make sure that the development plan design layout is part of any planning and zoning commission recommendation, as well as the architectural elevations are also part of any planning and zoning commission recommendation, similar to 222 East Green that would go forward to the mayor and county council.
Mr. Debo, can I ask you a question if you go back to that slide? It isn't that far away from Dutterers Park. Your concern is how do people at this apartment building get to Dutterers Park? Because there's no good access right now or safe pedestrian access. So that's certainly something that we have to address, because you can't have all these units here and not really have any access to kind of open space. So is your thought, now admittedly, admittedly, you could, through redesign and otherwise try to get more open space on that site as well, balancing act, though you might have to shade something off the building or whatever. But is your thought more so about the good access to Dutterers Park as a way to address that than trying to address it on site, or what are your thoughts on that?
It's a combination of both. I think additional open space needs to be provided on site for the actual residents nearby. But the lack of open space, the ability for open space for this parcel to get the type of development, I think the city is encouraging and would like to see. That proximity, the park is still closed, it's walkable as well as downtown. I would love that these residents could leave this residence, go down Dunroad Park and go a little bit further and hit downtown. But ensuring that they have a safe path, and how do we get those people to the downtown area?
Mhm. I will say, having worked on the Willows and the Green Street project, I give the applicant credit for the fact that I feel like we spent a lot of work sessions on this, the project. I feel like this is starting out, quite frankly, a better place than those two did, as far as I felt there was a lot of more work. I mean, don't get me wrong, we need a public hearing, we need the feedback from the community. And, there's some fine tuning here, but I think where we're starting out at is a better place than maybe we started out at those other two projects.
I agree, and again, this is much further ahead. I agree with that. It does provide several amenities and improvements that this property does not have. So I do believe this is moving in the right direction. So I would agree with that.
I do think it's interesting that we're gonna have two new 4 or 5-story buildings in close proximity to themselves. We were worried with the other one about the height. I mean, this almost eliminates that worry about the height.
It's exactly and that's the project, the 202s that we just recently processed and recommended approval to the north of this site, on the other side of Sullivan.
It's right across the street.
Yes.
Yeah, but I feel like, this one, Jay, because it has, it has so much it does have relatively decent visibility from 140. You know what I mean? So to me, the height where the Willows was, I was more concerned because of the surrounding stuff. I feel like this is kind of more anchored on 140, which makes me more comfortable with the height than if it was more pushed back towards Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah, well, one thing about between the sites, the other one's basically still centered in a residential area surrounded by houses. So this here is more business around it. I mean, you have car wash across the street, you got a gas station across the street. I mean, literally across the street.
Yeah.
So, like I say, this is a more commercial, it fits better there.
I agree with you, Jay. I think it fits, but
It
it fits better there.
And
Mr. Debo, did you have anything else?
just the recommendation, so staff recommends that ZMA 2601 as introduced for consideration to the Planning and Zoning Commission on May 21, 2026 be scheduled to public hearing. And just as process, as after the public hearing is held, the Planning and Zoning Commission will be asked to deliberate, which may include separate work sessions on the zoning map amendment and development plan, and to forward a recommendation to the Mayor and Common Council. And also the introduction of the application and scheduling for public hearing should not constitute a finding regarding the ultimate merits of the application or compliance with all applicable approval criteria. And with that completes my report.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak? If so, please provide for the record your name and address.
Yes, thank you. Ellie Miller, 7030 East Main Street, Westminster, Maryland, 21157. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, who is also present and with us, Mr. Ernie Rafaelides. He owns the site as it is now and is the prospective redeveloper, I'll call him, of the site. Marty Hackett with CLSI is here. He has prepared some of the plans, and Hannah Weichel, sorry, I want to call you Walker, and I knew that wasn't right. Well, Hannah Weichel is here with the architecture firm as well. And I appreciate the dialogue here tonight. That's really why we're here, is to hear some initial feedback from you. I think most of you are very familiar with the site, but just so you understand, Ernie has the site now, and this all kind of started because he wanted to redo the buildings on the site, and this has been a fairly long journey, but I'll credit, you guys can duke it out if everyone wants to take credit, but Mark and Sarah said, why don't you look at other potentials for the site? Is there a greater potential here than just taking the existing buildings and one by one redoing the existing buildings the way they already are? And so that is the impetus for this plan. The existing buildings are, this is R75 zoned, but they don't comply with today's current standards in terms of setbacks and things. So, you know, this site is already a little bit different than your typical R75 zoning district as it sits right now. And so through significant work, Ernie came up with this sort of concept plan, and it truly is that, a concept plan. There is flexibility to this, and so we do like take this opportunity very seriously to have this dialogue with you and hear some of the things that are important. And because there's room for this to be changed. This is not this exact thing to make this work. But it is important for us to get through some process as efficiently as possible, just from a time is money perspective. Just quickly to Mark's point about the existing residents, I just want to state that it's a little premature for us to start having those conversations. Even though we want to move efficiently, this is not going to be an overnight process, and we do not want the residents to think that this tonight means that, you know, next month there's going to be a demo permit or something. This is still years in the works before anything is actually being changed. So Ernie is willing to work with that, and I think that's very feasible under his existing lease structure and such to do that. But we do not want anybody to have the misconception that this housing product is going to change overnight. This is going to be a project. So we look forward to working with you all through the process, but really welcome any feedback that you have. I think one of our sort of questions of what Mark has posed is, do you like this retail concept? Do you not like it? Are other things more important to you than the retail there? Ernie has the existing site, which is residential only. So this would be a new sort of thing there, if you will. And we are truly open to your feedback in that.
Unlike some of our friends at the county, I don't necessarily have a problem with the mixed use. A little bit of humor.
We need it today.
No, I mean, I think a commercial element in that location makes some sense. I was a little bit curious, and you can clarify, I think the reason you wanted the commercial where you did is because of its proximity to Sullivan and kind of more the 140 area. Is that what was the whole process there?
I mean, we wanted to add a parking garage under the residential as well. So in order to do that, it needs to go at one side. So we can maximize the garage spaces. So, but to Kelly's point, I will add that I know that open space is of a concern, and you know, if the open space is more important, we can move more parking in, get rid of the retail, and open up the space there to maintain the parking count. I think that was one thing that we kind of talked about internally in terms of how to satisfy some of your concerns.
The other thing that may make a difference with that and be able to add additional open space and take away some of the on-site parking per se, to allow for more green space, is as we come up with a plan for the parallel parking along the 3 streets, or at least 2 of the 3. The ones that are more side street instead of the main road, but there's people who park along Sullivan now. So while we're doing it, we may change the configuration of the curb line and make it work different, but we're going to some of the spaces along that frontage, along that peripheral of the building or the lot itself, to where as we did that, we may be able to delete some of the parking, also create green space. The other thing would be, we may have to adjust the parking anyway to accommodate the sidewalk on not one or the other. Schaefer.
Yeah, sure.
So again, we're very inventory, you know.
Sure, and again, we have more, just curiosity, was there any thought given to the commercial being more, because you're kind of like the 140 part is right here, was there any thought of the commercial being more here on that angle? And then the parking being on either side? And I'm not saying don't take that as, I want you to do that right now, I just was curious what the thought process was.
I believe we have to look at it, with grade. I mean, right now, that commercial area is gonna have to be at grade to get in, obviously, the entrances.
Of the course.
If we'd have to look at the parking grade on both sides, or the issue on one side of the building versus the road grade on the other. It's I don't know that we're gonna be able to get access to two different locations in the parking area. The
Okay,
entrance is
understand, because it does make it more complicated, I get that,
the
yeah.
retail of that, how that's internally designed is gonna be, you know, a question that we're gonna have to work through. We may be coming back and they're saying, well, we really, as we graded, the sections just don't work through the building and it's gonna be parking, because the parking will be underground, whether it's entirely or partially. The retail space, not so much. We can't have the steps for ADA and all the other stuff.
Yeah,
And we want to give them the ramps and everything else associated. So I think that that's, you know, as we get into this thing and work through some of the details, and we're gonna be having workshops on this. I mean,
Sure.
we've had them on previous, and I think we are close. We got a great starting point. It's just there's a lot of details, a lot of engineering that may adjust some things that we don't see. But the main thing was to get there and sit there, oh, you like the concept. And from there, because once we start getting into this, obviously, the dollar starts flowing and things start flowing and the clock starts ticking.
I
Person,
like the idea.
go ahead, sorry.
I do like the idea of a retail center there, because in that area itself, retail is pretty limited. I mean, to get to any shopping centers or anything, you need to walk along 140. So having something like this in that area, I think that's a plus to it, having the retail.
No, I agree.
I mean, it's-
Wendy, you feel this?
I think it's a,
Too, I like.
and just for the residents themselves, I mean, having that retail and grocery stores.
Well, I don't think there's gonna be a grocery store there, but a little bit of it, but there could be a lot of different. How many square?
It's only a little over 9,000 square feet.
9,000, oh, okay, so that's,
I mean, I say only because in
Yeah.
context with the grocery store, that's.
Yeah, it's 9,000 is a good size.
Yeah.
I will say, like, I cannot remember, I lose track after a certain point in time, but the other projects that came to us that we went through a similar process, I feel like sometimes we were like, we don't even think you're ready for public hearing yet. This one, I feel like is far enough along, I don't feel like we need to work with it anymore before we go to public hearing. Not that there isn't more work to do here, but I think it's far enough along that it's a good representation of a concept that it makes sense for us to move forward with it to go to public hearing. I don't know how you all feel, but that's kind of what I don't think we at this level need to do anything else before we recommend it going to public hearing and start getting feedback. And then obviously, once we get that feedback,
More
then
feedback, the
we'll
better.
work. Yeah, yes, exactly.
And we could start the workshops at that point, taking into consideration input from the community and your input.
So I will make a.
Anyone else? Which
Oh.
Yeah, and we get the names and addresses of everyone who spoke. I'm not sure.
I believe that
Mark that.
we all
got it all
identified
tonight.
Is there anyone?
Anybody else? Commission has made their comments. Can I have a motion on local map amendment LMA 26-01 and a second?
I will make a motion that we proceed forward with taking it to public hearing so that we can receive feedback on the.
Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, seeing no objections, the motion has passed. Next on the agenda is site development plan SS-26-7 118 West Main Street. Staff, please proceed with your report.
Oh, this real quick.
What? No, yeah, we're not.
I asked you exactly.
Okay, thank you. Actually, not people reading, I apologize. So in this case, the applicant has filed a site development plan SS 2607, the redevelopment of 118 West Main Street. The subject property is located at the intersection of West Main Street and Pennsylvania Avenue and consists of an existing vacant commercial building formerly occupied by the Seafood. Property contains approximately 0.20 acres in the zone DB downtown business pursuant to Article 8B of the zoning ordinance. The proposed redevelopment includes the renovation of an existing commercial structure, revised site circulation, commercial improvements, pedestrian enhancements, landscaping, and exterior facade improvements associated with establishment of a 1,256 square foot cafe within the existing building. Pursuant to zoning ordinance section 164-45.8A39, restaurants and lunchrooms without drive-through service is a permitted use in the DB downtown business. The proposed landscaping plan complies with applicable provisions of the landscape manual and includes enhanced streetscape plantings, parking lot landscaping, screening elements, and pedestrian oriented site improvements. And if I could, I'll just go through the site plan real quick. Again, it's at the intersection of Main Street and Pennsylvania Avenue. If you're familiar with the site, there's multiple access points on Main Street and Pennsylvania Avenue. This plan is eliminated all access points except one from Main Street. And that's where you can see here for access.
Because right now there's two along Main Street, is that
Yeah.
correct?
There's
There's kind of like a double one along Main and then there's one along Pennsylvania,
Yes,
correct?
and so you can essentially cut through. So this eliminates the cut through access or ability. Anywhere there was an existing access point that'll be redeveloped with side curb and gutter and sidewalk. And that's represented in the plan as well through the limits of disturbance. And there's 5 parking spaces on site. The handicap parking space is close to Pennsylvania Avenue. I think there might see some work we need to do with the handicap space. Might have to swap locations so you can back out and actually exit out of the site. And of course, multiple landscaping on the site. So back to parking, the proposed cafe is to have 16 seats and 4 employees and is required to have 6 parking spaces. There is a 25% parking reduction because the property is located in the downtown parking area. And this would reduce it down to 5 parking spaces, and they are provided the 5 parking spaces on site, as I stated. The applicant submitted a water and sewer allocation application, WSA 2522, for the cafe. And it was found that 400 gallons of water and sewer allocation is needed to serve 16 seats. On May 6, 2026, Community Planning Development presented the proposed architectural elevations.
Can I ask you a question or two about before you get to architecture? Can I ask you a question or two about this, the layout of the site?
Yes.
For the site plan. As part of this, I'm assuming because you have all these places where the sidewalk is obviously indented for the existing entrances, I'm assuming the sidewalks are going to be redone
Yes.
in that area. Is that correct? Along both Pennsylvania and Main Street as part of this redevelopment?
Yes, that's what staff is recommending.
Okay.
Proposing that the curb and gutter is replaced, so you eliminate that curb cut. So it would be a full sidewalk. The only curb cut that would be remaining would be the one on Main Street that's shown.
Okay. And it still looks like you're putting up a couple of concrete poles to stop somebody on that one edge. Am I reading that right or not?
They are showing some bollards here, and that was a concern of backing out and hitting the bollard. So maybe the handicap space actually has to be here so they can actually back out. Without.
And I guess they're doing that because they don't want someone to jump the sidewalk. Is that the idea in that location or?
I'm assuming the applicant talked about that, but you can see the limits of disturbance that's picking up the areas where the existing driveways are located.
So that's where the sidewalk will be replaced?
Yes. So they extend the limits of disturbance outside of the site onto the sidewalk area.
So will they be replacing the sidewalk that's in between those two areas or not?
There's a curb here already. So you have a tree existing, a curb here. This is the opening, there's an opening here.
Okay, so they won't necessarily be replacing that part of the sidewalk then?
No, so it'll be just extending the curb that's existing, to match the curb on this side and also on this section here.
And just
See the
you're
additional
gonna have to
curb.
blend that in, that looks right, you know what I mean, like, you know. Yeah, understand.
Any other questions about the plan itself?
Does anyone else have any questions about the site plan
It's good to
itself?
see something's being done with it.
Yes. On May 6th, 2026, Community Planning and Development presented the proposed architectural elevations with on the screen for the project to the Historic District Commission for advisory feedback regarding compatibility with the surrounding downtown context. Following a review of the proposed elevations, the Historic District Commission provided several recommendations intended to improve compatibility with the surrounding historic character, commercial character. And those comments were provided in the staff report. Staff believes additional refinement of the architectural elevations would improve consistency with the Development Design Preferences Manual and compatibility with the surrounding downtown streetscape. Specifically, staff recommends further consideration of facade articulation, material variation, pedestrian scale architecture, detailing, and historically compatible exterior features prior to final approval of the elevations. And with that, after further discussion of the elevations and rather it come back to staff feels strongly that these elevations come back to Planning and Zoning Commission for review and consideration before we move forward. So the recommendation is being revised, and I apologize for that. The staff is recommending that the Planning Commission consider continuance of the proposed site development plan S2607 118 West Main Street to allow the architectural elevations to come back. And some of the following conditions that staff is still reviewing and could carry over with that follow-up with the Planning and Zoning Commission is one, to revise the proposed architectural elevations to address Planning and Zoning Commission, Historic District Commission direction. Two, final architectural elevations shall be subject to review and final approval by Planning and Development prior to signature approval of the site development plan. Three, final signage shall comply with applicable historic district and zoning requirements. Four, final landscape installation shall be completed in substantial conformance with the approved landscape plan. Five, the Pennsylvania Avenue access point shall be permanently closed. And Pennsylvania Avenue Main Street sidewalk, curb, and gutter improvements completed prior to issuance of occupancy permits. Six, I'm sorry, I should have viewed that. Six, final approved plan shall incorporate all required ADA accessible improvements. And seven, site development plan SS 2607 shall become null and void after 2 years from the date of the Planning and Zoning Commission approval, unless signed for approval by a designated member of the commission and the planning director. This is something new we've added. The intent is that we do have applications or plans that have come through the Planning and Zoning Commission and have not moved forward after several years. And there's water and sewer allocation applied to those projects that are being essentially held. So the concern is here that this seventh proposed condition just puts the applicant on notice that the intent is that they do move forward with the project. Otherwise, it would have
So we're gonna start suggesting that you have that as a condition of approval.
yes.
It's not a bad thing to have, actually.
Can you go back to the elevations? Yeah, so, Mr. Debo, like the site plan itself, you know, that's a difficult site, you know, a corner site, though it's a highly visible site. And I'm very excited to see something happen there. You know, generally, you know, I'm pretty pleased with what they're doing with the site, and I'm glad that the city is working with them as far as that's concerned, because it's hard, you know, it's a corner triangle piece. But I do have a lot of concerns regarding the elevation. We are very much trying to pay a lot of attention to our downtown and how, you know, properties kind of blend into the historic nature of downtown. And no offense to the elevations up there, but it looks like something I could see in a suburban retail environment. And it just doesn't, the elevations don't do anything for me when it comes to trying to maintain the historic character of downtown. And not to jump ahead, but I know the next thing on the agenda, I was very impressed with some of the elevations I saw on that project, because they were very much trying to ground it into the historic nature of downtown. So I hope that between now and when it comes back, you can really work with the applicant to kind of give them a really good set of a sense of what we're looking for. And I don't know quite how to describe it, you know what I mean? But it's not that, and especially with being downtown. I don't know how you guys feel, but I just, that doesn't do anything for me from an elevation standpoint.
Well,
And that's a
I'm
critical
honestly
project.
tired of looking at that curly building that's there.
Yeah.
It's the big orange crab is gone, that where the gas
Hey,
station
yeah.
sign was. I live up there. I think if you took that little building and you added some cute red and white awnings on it and some planters out front, I think it would fit our into fine, and it wouldn't take a whole lot of complex things.
No, I don't think that is not it. I think there's things that you could do with the existing elevation and other things that could make it blend in better with the historic nature. So let's see what they come up with between staff and all that.
I'd be concerned, I wanted to do that. But there's a building behind it also that needs to blend in with that too. Metatron is right behind it.
Well,
So
somewhat it needs to blend in, Jay, but I will say, you know, when you're downtown,
But it's, I see what you're saying, but it's not right downtown. It's not what I would say is main downtown. Then again.
the Carroll Arts Center, you can walk to the Carroll Arts Center from there. Carroll
Yeah.
Arts Center's downtown.
Yeah, that is down.
Yeah.
But I just think it also has to blend in with the buildings that's already there behind it. Make it look kind of cohesive that because the thought process is that how we're trying to convert maybe the whole site to look better for both of them.
And that building's pretty
By
plain.
blending the two together.
That building's pretty plain. That tree is pretty
Yeah,
plain.
it's pretty plain.
I think if you look at jumping ahead to the next project, the vibe of that project, you haven't gone through it yet, has more of the element, it does have some of the brick nature, but it's in a much more of a historic kind of vibe. And I know this went to the Historic District Commission, and they look at this, and I agree with them as someone who lives this is downtown. And this site is really important. How how these elevations look is critically important in the long run. And I don't think we're talking about something that's hugely expensive or anything like that. I just think it needs a little bit more thought and character behind it. To me, that's very plain Jane. Looks like I'm in a suburban environment.
Should we have public comment? Yes.
Yes.
Discussing this further.
Yes.
Maybe we were supposed to do that first.
Sorry, sorry.
Sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
Yeah.
Are you?
I should go with my point,
yes. Yes.
Is there anyone wishing to speak? If so, please provide for the record your name and address.
Josh Royal, I'm with DSO and Associates, I represent the client, 7115 Ambassador Road in Baltimore. Just to say, we're more than happy to work with you guys with what you would like architecturally speaking, just really in the interest of time. We'd love to get specific feedback, examples of what you're looking for, because our client's been at it for a while, just trying to renovate a building and make it useful.
Yeah.
It's been vacant. I think everybody would like it to move forward, so we're more than happy to work with you architecturally. You to know which direction you would exactly like us to head. Maybe not exactly, but roughly like us to head. That's it.
Anyone else? Does the commission have any more comments? Can I have a motion on site development plan SS-26-06?
Wait, I thought we were talking about continuing this, is that correct?
Yeah, does the commission have any additional comments?
Do you have any comments and response?
If you want to provide, I think from a design preference manual standard, there's a lot of lacking in this design. It's a solid flat roof. There's supposed to be some change in elevation. The facade itself is, again, it's flat, basic. Brick, not a bad concept because brick is seen downtown. But whether it's necessary or not, but I think there needs to be more review of the preference manual standards and what the Historic District Commission recommended for architecture. And I think we already mentioned, and the next project is coming forward, they really took the building as is and they did improvements to the building, but still maintain essentially what the building was and the character of the building. So maybe that's something you want to look at, that this to be a cafe, maybe it's a cafe and it says it's a cafe. So that's just a staff's.
So Mr. Debo, you could sit down, because I do think the next project with the elevations is an excellent example of taking an existing building and taking what's there, but kind of take it to another level, and tie it in. And I think there's an opportunity to do it with the existing elevations that we have there. Or that, when I say the existing, I mean the actual existing elevations, not those. And kind of take what's there and bring in some of those other elements. But I think they're looking for a specific direction that maybe you can sit down and kind of work with them, and maybe they can stay and watch what the next project is. Because I think the next project is a great example of taking an existing elevation and doing something with it. And I'm not saying for them to copy that one, but along those lines.
And I would hope that they could come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission with some potential options that would give you the ability to provide additional feedback to the architecture. And if they do get good feedback to the point that the Planning and Zoning Commission is satisfied that it can be accomplished, as we've done in the past, you can always have staff do the final approve of the architecture. I'm just not sure, we're not quite there yet. I think we need a lot more discussion of the architecture specifically. Staff has no issues with the site design. I think the improvements for access, we pick up additional parking on both those streets as we close off those access points. So that's a benefit as well. But I think it really comes down to the architecture.
So if they could get us updated architecture, they might even be able to come back next month potentially.
I think we can work on potential architecture and concepts. I really think that maybe what we've done in the past is look at other jurisdictions, other locations that have the same type of concept, and provide those examples to both the applicant and the Planning and Zoning Commission, to then provide better guidance to the applicant on design.
No, we're not gonna make a motion right now.
Well, I think we need to make a motion to continue.
But to continue, it wouldn't be in the recommendation.
Somebody wanna make a motion?
I will make a motion that we continue our review of site development plan SS 2607 118 West Main Street to a future meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Is that fine?
Have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right. Next on the agenda is site development plan SS 24-21 285 287 East Moon Street. Staff, please proceed with your report.
So site development plan SS 2421, the applicant is proposing a redevelopment of the 285 to 289 East Green Street property. The subject property is located at the intersection of East Green Street and Washington Road. The subject property, 285-828 to 289 East Green Street, is zone DB downtown business zone or DB zone, and is subject to the City of Westminster zoning ordinance. Pursuant to site development plan SS 2421, the property contains approximately 1.39 acres and includes approximately 31,430 square feet of existing commercial building area within two structures. SS 2421 proposes to raise the existing wooden building, and that's the building here that's facing East Green Street, as well as portions of the second building existing more of a concrete structure. And you can see the section along East Green Street here and a section along Washington Road that is intended to be raised as well. And the primary purpose for the removal of the building is for additional parking, as you can see, to the site and to get around the site. The redevelopment again includes new parking area and landscaping for the commercial retail use and renovating the facade of the concrete block building. As provided by the applicant, SS 2421 states that the proposed use of the property is retail and storage. The applicant intends to provide a retail flex space within the remaining building area. pursuant to zoning ordinance section 8B, the DB downtown business zone, section 164-45.8, the uses permitted, does allow for several retail uses in the DB zone. The site meets and exceeds the landscaping requirements of the landscape manual. Pursuant to zoning ordinance section 164-111B, the applicant is required to provide 92 parking spaces. The site is afforded, again, a 25% reduction for being a downtown parking area. This reduces the number of parking spaces from 92 to 69. The applicant can provide 55 parking spaces on the property. With the redevelopment of the property, staff reviews existing sidewalks as well as the, well, let me stick with parking, I apologize. So 55 on site, so they are short. They were just recently approved an administrative adjustment to reduce the number of parking. They do own the property across the street from this, which is a commercial parking lot, where I believe they picked up 11 parking spaces at that location to help serve this site, and then with the additional parking reduction and eventually a parking agreement to pick up the remaining parking requirements, they will meet parking on for the property and meet the zoning ordinance for parking spaces. Again, with the redevelopment of the property, staff reviews existing sidewalks as well as the need for additional sidewalks. Final construction drawings shall demonstrate compliance with applicable ADA acceptable requirements. So we do look at the existing sidewalk paths along East Green Street and Washington Road. There are some obstacles, some poles, other things that might limit the ability for handicap accessibility, but we're working with the applicant and continue to at the best we can to ensure or improve the the pedestrian handicap movement around the site. And a water and sewer allocation application, WSA 2571, was submitted, and with this application and is being processed for general retail uses. The allocation request is associated with anticipated general retail and commercial occupancy within the redeveloped building. Final approval of water and sewer allocation will be needed prior to final approval. And it should be noted, without stating the specific retail use, any proposed use of the property requires submission and approval of a separate water and sewer allocation application. General retail, we can give water to that, but there's multiple types of retails that may require additional water. So that would require additional water and sewer allocation application in the future to accommodate for that use. And that's not uncommon. Strip centers, shopping centers, same thing. Might not anticipate a restaurant or the number of restaurants, so they would submit a separate water and sewer allocation application for that specific use, where we would have to allocate additional water to the property, if available. So again, we talked about the elevations. The applicant, again, is revising and improving the existing elevations of the block building. You can see multiple changes to the entrance area and the height added to the building, as well as improvements to the windows and also some awnings that are being proposed. The applicant can talk more about this. I'm not giving it justice, but it is quite an improvement for this corner than what we see there today. And with that, staff is recommending the Planning and Zoning Commission consider conditional approval of site development plan SS 2421 or 285 to 289 East Green Street, subject to the following conditions. 1, address all remaining City of Westminster and Carroll County government comments. 2, continue to work with the city staff to demonstrate compliance with ADA. 3, obtain final stormwater management approval from Carroll County Resource Manager prior to signature approval of the site development plan. 4, obtain final water and sewer allocation approval prior to issuance of permits. 5, final construction drawings shall demonstrate ADA compliance to the satisfaction of city staff. 6, any future change in use shall require zoning approval and verification of parking compliance is applicable. And that goes for the parking agreement. There's still a continuation, things we still have to finalize for the administrative adjustment approval for the parking. And 7, site development plan SS 2421 shall become null and void after 2 years from the date of the Planning and Zoning Commission approval, unless signed or approved by the designated member of the commission and the planning director. That concludes my report.
Is there anyone wishing to speak? If so, please provide for the record your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Tim Mathias. I am the site consultant with Development Design Consultants. Just a couple things to address on
Your
the,
address, please.
I'm sorry.
Your address.
Oh, I'm sorry, 184 East Main Street, Westminster. We do have all Carroll County agency approvals, including stormwater management. We just got that recently, I believe on the 14th. The ADA issues that Mark is speaking of is along the frontage of Washington Road and on Green Street. So Green Street is very solid. We're providing a 5-foot sidewalk. There are some power poles along Green that present the issue. We are going to meander the sidewalk around the power poles to provide the required ADA space for pathway width. Washington is a little bit more challenging. Many more power poles, a lot of service on those poles. In addition to that, from the back of the existing sidewalk to the site, there's about a 2-foot wall. So there is a big grade change between the sidewalk. Right. So Mark and I, with Joe Atkins from city staff, we've looked at it. There's one power pole that creates a little bit of an issue. We can't get the 36-inch clearance there, but we have 32. There is an exemption from the 36 as long as you get back to within 4 feet, you get the required width. Okay. So I think that will satisfy. On site, we meet all ADA compliance. The county's site compliance reviewer has reviewed the plan and given us approval. It's just a matter of providing the ADA pathway with in the areas of those power poles.
It can be difficult at times when you're doing a redevelopment like this.
Yeah,
You're not starting from scratch.
Right. So there are some sidewall panels that along Washington that have sunk. We're gonna replace those, make sure that there's a clear pathway.
Do you have anything else you want to add? I do have a few questions.
I'm here with Mark Hosky, he's the owner's representative. We're here to answer any questions.
I do have a few questions about it, and I commend you with
Can't take credit for it, that is Radcliffe Architects, yeah.
They did a wonderful job with I think their design is great and obviously a big improvement over the existing facade, but also is very much keeps the character of the historic nature. And with this project going on and the project that we have going down further on Green Street, the big condo building that's eventually going in, I'm really excited for this end of Green Street. This project happens, that project happens. I think it's a great benefit for that area of town.
Yep.
So the questions, it wasn't totally clear to me, and hopefully someone can explain. When I'm looking at the existing elevations, it looks like they're concrete blocks that are placed. So is my understanding that all of this, you're like brick veneering the whole building, or what's exactly happening here? Because you have paint samples, brick veneer, obviously the black metal frame windows. I understand what's going on there, but I'm not sure where the brick is or where paint is. So can someone
The initial phase is going to not include all of that masonry work. It honestly depends on the existing tenant and how long they decide to stay there before the parking lot improvements, the demolition of the ugly building along Green Street, that brown building there going away, and increasing the parking and fixing the entrance to the building where it says that, textile, raising those door heights, that's all going to be done initially. Whether it's all the new veneer or whether it is an application we do to the block, or whether that isn't honestly, the timing of that has not been decided. And only because the colors and obviously would all have to be approved, but depending on who the tenant would be, might have something to say about that.
So Mr. Debo, how does that impact what we are or not approving related to this? Because it sounds like we don't have exact clarity of what is happening there.
I would think any change to what the architecture is being proposed, are minor changes or changes to the brick color, I think I would say they have to come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for architectural review.
Okay,
And the Historic District Commission, I forgot to mention, this did go to the Historic District Commission some time ago. They were also.
Twice.
Yes.
report. And it's pretty interesting reading. If you ever
Yes,
want to read it.
and they did support the design and felt it did keep with the Historic District intent.
but is the intent, but again, I'm not entirely clear when I'm looking at this elevation because it's a painted drawing. Is that all intended to be brick or not? That's what I don't understand.
I was thinking the impression was supposed to be bright.
It is, well,
That-
yeah, and
that's
right
my
now
opinion.
that the brick veneer that's proposed there on page 2 is the intended.
Okay, so the concept is along Green Street and Route 32, Washington Road. That those elevations are to be brick. And then these paint colors are some of the complementary paint colors, that are gonna be for the signage and otherwise that they're showing.
Right.
Window panels and other things as well, yes.
Okay,
And maybe treatments to the cornice and around the building.
yeah,
And similar to CFT Plaza, if you recall, that went through its approval, got painted with approval. And if you recall, they changed the brick color that was already put up. And we did bring that back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review and approval of the change to that elevation.
So, Mr. Debo, when we're approving this site development plan, we're approving the new art elevations and architecture.
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to be clear,
As they exist in this spec.
if what we're seeing right now is what we're approving.
Yes.
So that's a condition, these elevations are a condition of what we're approving to.
Yes.
And just so everybody's on the same page, because again, those are kind of, public drawings. Those elevations are to be bricked.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure, for the record, that's what we're approving here tonight.
Again, the elevations are a part of the staff report and the attachments are part of the record that's presented before the Planning and Zoning Commission tonight.
I know, but it was just a little bit clearer when you look at this, it doesn't, do you know what I mean? It doesn't say, there's not a little thing that says brick veneer, but I thought that was the intent.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to be clear for the record.
Do you have anything you'd like to?
I thought I had it down.
Right, can
I think, I will say again, I think the redevelopment of this site is a very attractive redevelopment. And again, in the elevations, I commend the work that you guys have done on the elevation.
Thank you.
I just want to be clear that as we approve this, we're approving the elevations at the same time. So if something needs to change all of that,
Understood.
gotta come back.
And the same family owns Maggie's, owns the parking lot across the street and owns this property, so they're pretty well invested in making sure that it's a.
Dan, as an example, we didn't have any, there are no tenants now, so there's no signage. We understand that once those tenants start coming in.
Reopening the public comment.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Did we close?
we didn't close it, we went right to the.
No.
So it's not a public hearing, so I don't know if you necessarily close it, but you moved on to your
Okay.
comments. So if we're gonna take more public comment, that's,
Okay,
yeah, you're fine.
I was just trying to put your comment into context that as an example, we have no signage shown right now because we have no tenants. We understand that when signage is proposed, you need to come back to the planning. Right, we need to come back to the planning commission. So we understand that any changes would require us to come back.
and one other question for clarity. Do you have a sense of what your intent is for the use of that building right now?
I wish we, no, they really, it's just concept. Because there is an existing tenant and although the lease is well below market, we don't know how long they're going to be there.
Gotcha. Okay. So, but this has the same comment about this, the site plan becoming null and void if it's after 2 years before anything happens.
So this isn't, well, I mean, it's not gonna be 2 years.
There's not gonna be 2 years before you start this.
No.
And I have a motion on the site development plan SS-23-21 and a second.
I will move that the Planning and Zoning Commission conditionally approve site development plan SS 2421, 285, 289 East Green Street pursuant to the City of Westminster zoning ordinance article 25 and based on the May 8th, 2026 staff report and the 7 conditions of approval listed above. And just also with the clarification of the discussions that we had, clarifying the elevations and that what we're seeing is all correct.
Oh,
Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? No objections, seeing no objections, the motion is passed. So we're moving on to old business. Is there any old business?
Thank you. Staff has no old business.
Is there somebody from Carroll County present to provide a report, and if so, please provide your name.
Hello, yeah, Carroll County Planning Liaison. I just have a few updates. I'm not sure, a lot of them are, from the Board of County Commissioners. I'm not sure if you saw their, open session today, but some of that.
I have not.
So.
I've heard about it, but I have not.
I'm going to watch
Yeah.
it.
It's worth watching. So there was, they were considering, so for the deferrals in the Freedom Growth area, there aren't any updates for retirement villages, retirement homes, cluster subdivisions, planned commercial centers, or storage centers. Other than what I've previously reported to all of you, except for storage, self-storage facilities. The decision to approve the deferrals of self-storage facilities in Freedom area expired in March 18th. A public hearing was had on April 9th to consider extending the deferral of final approval of self-storage facilities in the Freedom Growth area for 6 months to October 9th. So that passed. So today they had an open session and they discussed whether they would like to modify that deferral for any particular self-storage facilities that have reached a certain stage of development or of like concept development, if they would like for those to be exempt from deferrals, but that did not go through, or if they would like to take back the decision for the deferrals to be extended to October 9th, that did not go through. So as of right now, all self-storage facilities in the Freedom.
But none of these deferrals have any impact on the Westminster area or around us anyway, so to a certain point. I mean, not that, you know, we don't care about
I don't have a lot of
Freedom area,
updates.
but we're in Westminster, so.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of updates for
Yeah.
Westminster specifically,
Okay.
actually. The only thing I think that is like relevant is we're working on a zoning ordinance update for accessory dwelling units in accordance with the new law from the state. So accessory dwelling units will now be allowed on all single family homes. So yeah, so it's a little more lenient for the requirements of accessory dwelling units. So that text amendment is it's in process. We're working on tweaking the text amendments for that. That's really the only update I have that I think directly affects Westminster. Otherwise, it's
Well, no, that could impact the water and sewer area that's not within the municipality,
Yeah.
you know, but that not within the municipality, that you could potentially have more people looking to do ADUs
Absolutely.
in the county portion of our water sewer area, which could be somewhat problematic because we're very limited on water and sewer. So that's something that we definitely need to keep an eye on and think about as that's moving through. And I know that we will be looking at that for us as well.
Yeah. Otherwise, I have other like new things that are going on in the county, but they aren't necessarily Westminster related.
Okay.
The use off premises signs, the billboards, there was a text amendment for the consolidation and relocation of non-conforming use off the
And
premises
that
signs.
failed correctly,
It failed,
but
yes.
they're exploring it or whatever, looking at the existing billboard.
Yes, that didn't go through.
Okay.
Correct.
But didn't they instruct staff to relook at the existing billboard ordinance, or am I dreaming?
Yeah, that was part of the conversation. Yeah,
I think in concept, it would be nice to have the ability to get rid of some of the billboards, and if that meant we had to make some of them bigger, that would be a great idea.
There's some billboards out there.
Yeah.
That are.
Yeah.
I
You
hate
do
it.
some kind of consolidation, it makes sense to me.
yeah, higher quality.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. Oh,
I was doing that years ago too. Down back then.
I'm not sure if I gave you this update already, but on February 5th, the Board of County Commissioners directed staff to work with the Planning and Zoning Commission to remove residential as accessory to planned commercial centers. It was introduced to the Planning and Zoning Commission on March 4th. And at their March 17th meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted to recommend to the Board of County Commissioners removing the residential use component from planned commercial centers. In order to not make current planned commercial centers non-conforming.
You know, it's funny, it's the centers they do have with residential, they've never had any problems with them. As far as I know.
So this would make it not non-conforming, it would make it conforming. And I think everything else is old news.
Does the commission have any more comments? Does the staff have any comments? Can I have a motion?
We do have a new member that will be joining us in June, correct?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Robert Wack was appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission by the Mayor and County Council. He was unable to make it today because he's out on vacation, I believe, but he will be at the next meeting.
Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of the motion to adjourn?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Seeing no objection, the meeting is adjourned at
7:24.
7:24 p.m.
Earlier than I thought we would be.
Hey.
Oh, I'm talking, I said the other one.
The most fashion and March has her hands. Trying to set new standards for us.
Sure.
Hey, Mark. Hey, how you doing?
Lovely.
Actually, I had to leave my headphones. That's.
Every time I put my nose out, I stop right up with my nose out, start right.
Yeah.
Well, this isn't really, this was impacted then. Yeah.
Exciting things happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll set it up.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, like Jason, like, this, and the visions, this looks out, helps this, those things as well.
Oh,
So you have a nicer, Kevin Sullivan to college.
Second year, I mean,
Oh, yeah, and I think the college would like this one too.
Lori Graham, you I'm sure, so I still sit next year. I did it for about 20 years.
Yeah.
Been here probably 20 years.
College.
One day Marty Hill came in and
That's
said,
great.
that's what I
I
raised.
still think clients right there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's like environment.
Yeah.
So I-
I had to raise his kids.
Sullivan, been on Sullivan, is Sullivan,
Yeah.
their sidewalk.
Good to see you.
It's like,
Very.
there's no reason.
I do too.
Yeah, to be able to walk. Yeah.
And I need to decide needs, but I don't see the signature pen here for you. So we're gonna have you come to the office to sign these. I thought I'd save your trip, but I know, it's difficult.
Mark, what do you need?
The blue signature pen,
Yeah. That before. That Sharpie, don't talk until after.
Maybe green?
Ask questions.
Needs to be blue?
and it has to be that Sharpie pen that,
You should be asking a
that we
question.
use.
That's where it transitions.
Yeah.
It's like when you're starting to say, that's like.
And she can hang out with us, so yeah.
It does, and that's so I think.
It's just different dialect. So if you're asking a question.
Housing had a chance to look at
If you have a question about
the
her report,
sheriff's.
fine, but when
Yeah.
it comes to
Okay.
your personal opinion.
Whenever you get
or that
the
you would
chance,
suggest,
whenever you do actually,
Better.
like, let me know what
Okay.
you think about it, because
And the public
I'd like
discussion should be
to
done.
make comments.
Mark should be done, the public discussion should be done,
No.
and then
You know.
your turn.
But what if you?
Like, overlay.
You wanna get together and talk about it?
Yeah, I think that would be
Yeah,
good.
let me take a look at it and then we'll set up a time and. we'll go
What if
through and
you
make
do
sure
want
we're
to be
on the same page?
The
Yeah.
applicant
Talking,
on like,
the last
hey,
meeting sounds like you guys are
you know,
equally kind of pushing this,
I think we
Well, so
need.
long as.
eliminating that.
I understand what you're saying, I
Yes.
think it would be
That's your-
helpful and
that's
beneficial
good.
to us.
Right, exactly.
Hello.
Alright, I'll let you know.
I feel like I haven't seen your
It's
face
been
in
like-
forever, sorry, I don't.
Yeah.
Yes, it's been since
Right,
like
yes.
Wakefield, well, even just like on Zoom, and like. It's sort of kind of years, but that's between all
Why
of
don't we
them,
do
but
that?
yeah,
We're just going anywhere.
busy.
Every,
Still busy.
go to Dr. Park and walk.
There's something
to go, so
exciting
once
stuff.
all you can see. is the river.
Seafood folks.
And nobody's ever gonna walk this, if you go at lunchtime, there's a little restaurant near the industrial park, too, constant people just walking, taking the laps.
Get
getting
their
out.
plan information,
And I was like, that's
and they've committed to whatever we want to put on the plan.
You know, you can build it.
That's
you'll keep-
70%.
and so
So that would be approved right away.
Also, that's what you don't totally learn.
I don't want them to sit out there for
Do
children like that.
things like planning school,
Yeah,
and I had no idea that.
I was like, who's the architect? Why is it?
How like Shirley's paths
Yeah.
and
And films.
so made it piece by piece.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'll
You
call
know,
him tomorrow, I'll call him
like,
tomorrow. I'm like,
property
tomorrow,
by
get out
property.
this next week,
And it
we'll tell you how to
seems
fix
like
it.
it's
feels-
it's not that, but it's
that-
like
Yeah.
you have to.
No,
It's most future is
exactly, exactly.
So
Make it.
Don't
like,
think
yeah,
about there's
It's on
nowhere
this
to go, but there will be. That's a great connection, plus it helps out the city,
That's why I'm here.
if you
Yeah.
do have to make
It's
those
getting around.
patches
Yeah.
in between,
Because
it's
it's at
less
this point that you
costly.
can get stuck in the black
than
hole
having
of.
to the entire side.
No, I'm glad, I noticed that you.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because it's,
My,
I don't
it's
want them to
within-
feel like
So-
we're not trying to work with them at the
we're
same
doing
time,
them
I'm
as
like,
advisory.
I don't wanna drive by
comments,
that
It's not the next.
2 years from now and be
step,
like,
we're doing
oh, that's
them as
ugly.
advisory comments,
Yeah.
so like
Yeah.
my comment letters don't have.
I don't want to get a phone call in
as
6 months.
do,
Where is
but
this from?
I still would like, for whatever I say to be like, in conjunction with.
And
But we don't use, I mean, you see
It's
it,
like,
good
once we get property.
planning comments from the
And
county,
the
you don't get
addition,
that as much
you said your
anymore, so.
alternatives.
And we both
Yeah.
have to now,
Okay,
Yeah.
that's that.
next thing.
I think we got interrupted with that part, you can hear about Robert and you were telling